Our biggest deal that we're working on to date is actually a fishery deal, and it is for 200 million, and is very intriguing and exciting. This gentleman, his family's been fishermen literally generations, and so he has come up with a technology in a new way that his fish will be able to be labeled organic, and that'll be the first farmed raised fish anywhere that can be labeled organic. So it's really I feel it's gonna change the industry, and so I'm excited that we get to be just a little part of that to help him facilitate his funding on getting the land and everything set up that he needs.
There are just too many commercial loan brokers that don't have a damn clue of what they're doing. All we're trying to do here is better the industry for everybody. At the end of the day, you can make great money in this industry, but in the end, it's all about helping people. You know, people always say, Kris, how can I be a successful broker? It's 2 words, hard work and dedication. If you don't like talking to people, you probably shouldn't be in this business. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Entrepreneurs in Finance. I'm Kris Roglieri, CEO of Commercial Capital Training Group, and I'm excited to bring to you another graduate and interview. I'm excited to interview him. Please welcome Justin Frye of JRF Financial. Hey, Justin.
Thanks. Hey, Kris, how are you?
I'm doing good. And I believe, who do you have on the side of you there?
Yeah, this is Eric Gooden, our CFO.
All right. Hey, Eric, how are you?
All right, sir. How are you?
Good. You didn't realize you're going to put on the hot seat today, did you?
Yeah, it's all good. It's nothing worse than the military. I can handle it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for serving our country.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right. You never know what will happen on this podcast, but in any event, glad to have you both on here. So, Justin, you know, I remember when you went through class, you attended the virtual class. Is that correct? Of June 2020?
Correct. Yep, correct.
All right. So tell me about, before we dig into kind of what you're doing now and the success you're having and just kind of your journey, which has brought you up to this point. Tell me about what you did prior to even finding CCTG and what led you to kind of go on a quest and ultimately found us.
Yeah. Truth be told, it was really, not to get super religious, but it was really a godly thing. I've been a licensed financial professional going on a decade now. And I had a lot of my business clients that were asking about working capital and funding. And at the time, I didn't have a solution to it. And I also am a big believer in work smarter, not harder. So being transparent, I didn't set out to become a brokerage firm or a broker. I wanted to look and see if I could partner with one out there and just get a referral fee. But as I was doing my due diligence, the ones that I was finding, they weren't going to treat my clients with the same morals and ethics that I was, because I'm also a licensed minister and minister of finance at our church. So I have very high morals and ethics when it comes to running a business. So that's when I started looking and found CCTG and said, wow, what an amazing program that this offers. And this is the solution that I need to the challenge of, what I have with my current clients right this minute. So that's how I found you guys. And then, went through the class and we just took off from there.
So let me back up. That's interesting. So you were kind of already in a role of people coming to you for finance advice or financial advice. And you started to see, or they started to ask you needs. You realized you were dealing with business owners or people who needed capital. And so then you kind of went out on a quest to see if you can, bring some people and maybe get paid a referral fee. But then even further, you somehow found us through that quest, which we're out there on the internet, and it's not, out of the realm of possibility that you could run into us, especially when searching for things like that. So then you found us and you're like, well, wait a minute, this is exactly what I'm doing, or I want to do at the highest level. Forget about, what I was searching for before. Is that kind of correct?
Correct. And then when I found the website and started really looking through it, not just the program that the schooling that interested me, but it was really the podcast that I watched on there and the testimonials, because that's where I really saw that CCTG not only was giving you the tools that you needed to be able to, facilitate funding and help people, but was doing it in that moral and ethical way to really truly help your clients, but do it the right way. And that's really what, quote unquote, sold me to going through the training with you guys, is because I was like, you guys are legit. You guys are doing it the right way. You're not about, that's one thing you guys talk about it during training, but that was one thing that I saw for myself as well out there, is you have a lot of people that just label themselves brokers and do a lot of, unscrupulous things. And it's given the industry a bad name. And I know from going through training that that's part of the reason why you started the course, is because you saw that trend happening and you wanted to nix that and say, no, wait a minute. There's a right way to do it. And so let's correct this train before it gets way off track. And I, love your guys' program. I recommend it to anyone. And it's, like I said, it's a phenomenal program. You guys have a phenomenal character when it comes to doing the right thing by people.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. I mean, that does play into a big aspect of why we do what we do. And as you know, this industry is not really regulated. And so because you have that, you get, some unsavory type characters and practices that are not, that ultimately hurt the client, obviously, and cast a bad, shadow on everybody in the industry. It makes it harder to do business. So yeah, I mean, we that's always been the case. So this is a kind of one of our many ways to try to legitimize and give some credibility to what you guys do, what brokers do, and kind of set standards, if you will. So I appreciate you recognizing that, because that goes big here. So, that's a big philosophy here. So now take me through, virtual. So, I remember we went virtual in March in response to the pandemic. The show had to go on, so we had to adapt. And so it looks like, when you came through in June, we were a couple months into doing the virtual thing. Tell me about that experience going through virtually, since you couldn't be here.
Yeah, again, we're all about transparency. So there's good and a little bad to it. The good, obviously, is the fact that you're right there in your home, and to go through and watch and take notes, and you're in a comfortable position being in your home. The bad is the same thing. You're in your home and in a comfortable position, because it's very easy for a lot of people in that environment to tune out. Sure. Or to, let the class go, but then go do something else because, oh, I got to do this or got to do that, or, oh, I forgot to. Whereas when you're in the physical classroom,
right,
that's it. You're locked in. So
yeah.
Thankfully, and I'm able to see both sides of that, because as you probably recall, I did have a gentleman that went through the class with me, and that's exactly what happened. He would fall asleep during the class and do this and that, because he would come over to my home to, quote, go through the schooling together. And, me, I was all through it. And because
I remember you were active, you were very attentive.
Right. Because my philosophy is, if I'm making an investment in my company or myself, I want a return on it, obviously. So I'm going to make sure I pay attention. And, especially when the investment is a sizable amount, depending on no matter what level you go in at.
Sure.
It's not, it's not one of these, $500 quick classes. No, it's a, well worth the cost, but you're making an investment. So you better make sure that you get your return from it. And so all in all, I really enjoyed it because of the fact that I was honed in, and it made it easier for me to take notes, ask the questions because of the open format. So I think personally that it's very good. I think that you do have to make sure that you discipline your mind when you go in the virtual course, though, to, hey, set all things aside. Don't let distractions happen, because you're making this investment. So make it worth your while and focus in on it.
So, I think you're 100% correct, but is it suffice to say that the person that attended with you doing the actual training is no longer with you?
Correct.
Okay. Correct. steep price for sleeping, right?
Yes.
Sleeping on the webinar. Okay. So now you go through virtual, you as you know, it's a lot of information, but you establish a game plan. Tell me about your first, your first 6 months leading up to 2021. So tell me about those 6 months. Tell me about mistakes. Tell me about, successes in your mind. What happened during that time frame?
Yeah, we were very blessed because as soon as we graduated, we already had clients from obviously the finance side.
Yep.
So as part of the curriculum and graduating, we also, for those that aren't aware, you guys also do marketing for the graduates, which is awesome and helped as well. So it kind of, for me, it actually was a little backfire because at the time it was just myself. I had no help. So I almost got a little overwhelmed right in the beginning from all of my financial clients and the leads that were coming in from the marketing team, from you guys.
Right.
So I had to, pivot real quick on how to do proper time management to be able to also process and then make sure that I was giving good service to the clients at the same time. So I started just when we first started the first 6 months, I really started splitting my schedule. So I would have certain hours of the day where I would take calls with new clients and talk to them. And then the other hours of the day, I would be processing the current clients. And that worked out real well for me until I got to the point where we were big enough that then I was able to bring in help. And at the beginning of this year is when I brought Eric in as the CFO out of necessity, which is a good thing. But yeah, so that first 6 months, it was interesting. And my advice for someone getting into it, if they say hindsight's 2020. If I would have known, not then what I know now, I personally, I would have just went with the the top schooling package that gave the dedicated processing team, because that was my biggest learning curve and time consumer was the processing aspect of it, because we learn about the different types of funding and we learn so much during the training, but then when you graduate, you get into actually that processing side. That's a whole nother ball game, because depending on the type of funding and the lender, each one kind of has their own little nuances and
Sure.
differences of what they want to process a loan. So you have to learn that, and that can again be overwhelming if you're brand new to the industry and if you have no clue about finances either. Thankfully, it wasn't so overwhelming for me because I knew it was coming. I just wasn't prepared for it, so I had to pivot real quick. But that would be my advice starting out: is
Yeah.
it's well worth the top training package. I mean, besides all the extras that you get with it, just the dedicated processor alone,
Sure.
it makes that package well worth it.
It takes time. So, but yeah, you obviously purchased the gold package, right?
Correct.
Yeah, you purchased the gold package. So then you went through some struggles there. And then you had to bring in the cavalry or the help. So
Yes.
Eric, I'm going to turn to you. Eric, thanks for being on here. So tell me a little bit about your background and what intrigued you about Justin and what he was doing with this business model, which led you to ultimately be here today.
Well, I've been knowing Justin for quite some time. So we have a history.
Mhm.
I realized that he really enjoyed the class, but I also realized that my background is finance. I have a business degree with a concentration in finance.
Mhm.
So I realized that I could be a greater help to him.
Mm.
Now, coming aboard as a CFO this year, that's just one portion of it. I actually started working with him in June of last year.
Okay.
So I did that so I could see how the flow of the business
Okay.
and where I could step in to help take some things off of his plate. Well, one thing he was doing was equipment financing.
Mhm.
Well, I started in the equipment business in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very familiar with equipment financing and how it works and trucks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I took that off his plate immediately. And so anyone that's looking for that, they come through me with that.
Okay.
And I pretty much give them a blueprint of what I need and how it goes based on each lender's criteria.
Sure.
So it works out perfect for us.
All right. So yeah, so you came on board. That's actually a smart way of doing it. I mean, learning kind of the business model and then kind of, taking over some tasks and responsibilities from there. Um, and so now you're in. I mean, are you having fun? That's the most important thing. You like what you do?
Well, to be honest, this is my meat and potato.
Okay.
I'm a finance guy. I love finances. I love helping people.
Uh-huh.
We're not going to do anything that's not going to be advantageous for the client.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to lie to the client. We're going to let the client know exactly where they stand. Now it's up to them to make the decision at the end.
Sure.
We're going to give you the best we can give you, based on the criteria that you give to us. So it's been a great thing. I came from another industry. I was the president of another company. So I've been around numbers for quite some time. So I just knew that me and Justin together could make this work, and we could continue to grow JRF Financial. So
Grow the business. Okay. Yeah. Well, and that's my next question. So tell me about some of the successes you guys had as far as deals. Want to talk, what deals have you closed? Is there any large deals you're working on? I mean, tell me about up until this point, how has business been?
Yeah, so we've been very blessed. Close of last year and beginning of this year so far, closed a lot of commercial real estate. That's my niche out of us. He's the equipment guy. I'm the
Sure.
commercial real estate guy. I work with a lot of real estate investors here in the Atlanta area and across the country because I work with a lot of real estate networks like the Renatus groups and
Mhm.
the RIAs and things like that. So
Mhm.
very familiar with that space. It's very comfortable for me, being able to educate clients as well. There's a lot of investors, especially now, that are getting started and they really have no clue, even not talking about funding, but just how to do things and set their company up properly. So, we help them in all aspects with that. We've done a lot of the commercial real estate deals. Our biggest deal that we're working on to date is actually a fishery deal, and it is for 200 million, and is very intriguing and exciting. This gentleman, his family, he comes from Mediterranean. His family's been fishermen literally generations, and so he has come up with a technology in a new way that his fishery will actually be able to be, his fish will be able to be labeled organic, and that'll be the first farmed raised fish anywhere that can be labeled organic. So it's really gonna, I feel it's gonna change the industry, and so I'm excited that we get to be just a little part of that to help him facilitate his funding on getting the land and everything set up that he needs. So that's our biggest deal that we're working on right now. And then we have other deals in process right now for big things at the end of the first quarter. Eric's working on a few, I think you got like 4 or 5 right now, equipment deals going. So yeah, it's been nonstop for us, which again is a blessing and very good.
That's good. No, that's yeah, congratulations. It sounds like you got a lot of things going on. That fishery deal sounds like a really cool one, and wish you a lot of success with that. Um, Tell me about, being in this business now for, essentially over a year and a half, if you will. Um, what are some things that getting into the business? I mean, obviously you love what you do. It sounds like you guys are doing well, and that puts, yeah, that's important. But what are some things that you just don't like about the business that are maybe don't like, but are annoying? That you didn't really realize prior to getting into it.
I think the biggest one for me, clients and communication. Communication with some lenders, because I've learned that there's, like, I've had a couple different times where I'm just like, okay, I'm missing something. Just lay it out for me what you need, and that way I can, make sure that we bring the right people to you. And then with clients, the biggest, I guess, headache or hassle, and it's not really a headache, it's just frustration is so many people have absolutely no clue what true commercial funding is and how it works. They have no clue what they're actually needing money for. They just, some friend or family member told them, hey, you can get a SBA loan for this if you start a business, or you can, get funding for this if you want to say that. And so once we actually get on the phone and talk with them and get into the meat and potatoes of what they're looking for and their use of funds, a lot of times you learn that it's like, man, these okay, there's you're not prepared to get funding right
Sure.
now, or you can't
Right.
get funding right now. We need to work on this and that, and then come back to us. And I guess that's the biggest frustration, is the lack of waste of time. Because, and I get it, because we're not taught this in school, or as far as about funding in commercial forms, and especially on the real estate side. I get a lot of investors that, when we talk about commercial funding, they say, oh, well, I don't need commercial funding. I need residential. I just have a single family home residence. And I'm like, no. I'm like, any type of funding that is not your primary residence, that you're going to fix and flip or buy and hold, falls underneath commercial funding technically. That's just a term. And they're like, oh. So it's just education like that. That for me has been the biggest thing that I don't care for, because it's like, man, I didn't realize how many people truly did not have a clue.
No, they don't. I mean, they really don't. Now tell me a little about you guys work out of an actual office, or you work from home?
Both. We have our actual office that we're in today, and then we do a lot of work from home, doing webinars. We have a few clients locally that will come in and meet at the office. That's kind of been the thing since the whole COVID thing. Most clients are okay with doing live webinars instead of meeting you personally. And that's not just locally, that's across the US, because we have clients in multiple states.
Yeah. I always say it's very rare that you meet the borrower. I mean, even before COVID, it's rare that you meet the borrower, in my experience. But COVID made that a little, push that boundary even more. Now, from the judge of your accent, I know you're not from New York, so you want to both of you. You want to tell me where you're from, or where do you guys operate out of?
Yeah, we operate out of Atlanta, Georgia. And then so I'm kind of a mix as far as where I'm actually from. I was born in Texas, grew up in Indiana, Michigan, and then been here in Georgia for the last 14 years. Eric, he's originally an Alabama boy, and then he's been here. How many years you been here now?
15.
What's going on with Buckhead over there? They want to succeed from I used to go to Buckhead all the time. So I used to have an office in Marietta, but what's going on? I hear in the headlines they want to basically break away.
Yeah, they want to become their own city. They've grown big enough and have enough, money coming into that area that they feel that their taxes going to the city of Atlanta is not advantageous or helping their community there in Buckhead as much as it could be if they were their own city. So that's why they're wanting to break away and be their own municipality.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now I guess let me hit you with some kind of non-finance or CCTG related questions, just so our viewership, they always like to know kind of a little bit about you outside of being a graduate and coming through the program. So tell me if you could be anything in this world aside from doing what you're doing now, and literally just transport into a career or any type of role without any experience, you just boom, you transport into it. What would it be?
I'd be the next John Madden. I would be NFL sports announcer.
They're pretty timely since his passing, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. Would you travel around in an RV? Because he didn't like to fly. He
Oh
never
yeah,
flew a plane.
he had his own motor coaches.
Yeah.
I like flying, but I also enjoy traveling in style on the road. I in a prior life, before I got into finances, I was an actual over the road driver for almost 3 years. So it doesn't matter to me which way I go as long as I get there safely.
As long as you get there. What about you, Eric?
Well, I come from the law enforcement background.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had to do it, I would probably just train, do sensitivity training, maybe some hands-on training for law enforcement officers as far as how they deal with certain situations when you're out there, and to keep down this narrative of people just getting shot and
Sure.
killed,
Sure.
that are unarmed. It's not as easy as people think it is, but it's not as hard as people portray it is.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
it needs to have a balance.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. That's a unique one. I don't think we've ever heard that before. So good. If you could meet with Justin, if you could meet with anybody and sit down and take 2 hours of their time that are here in this life or have since moved on, who would it be? It could be anybody in the world.
Yeah, some people may find this kind of weird, but I would actually love to sit down with King Arthur, and reason being is because we know that he really did exist in history, but I would love to know how all of the folklore came about him and the Round Table and the knights and Merlin and all of it. So I would love to sit down just to find out where all of that mystery came from.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting one. Yeah, we haven't heard that in here. What about you, Eric? Who would it be?
No longer here would be Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Mm-hmm.
He would be the one I would want to sit down and pick his brain about the direction in which he saw America or the world going in, and see what I could do to help steer that in the right direction for all people.
Very good. Okay. Someone else said that too, I believe, in the last couple of podcasts. Someone mentioned MLK. Okay. Well, and now it comes time for the training where you guys, I know Justin, you know me more, but comes time where you could ask me anything, and it doesn't have to be about CCTG. It could be about anything at all. No holds bars. I'm not ashamed. Feel free to ask. I have thick skin, so go ahead.
Well, I had a question as far as, since starting CCTG, and I don't know if others know that watch this, but you also started the NACLB, the National Alliance Commercial Loan Brokers. But have you seen, because I know going through the training, the reason that you started both of them was to make a positive impact on the field as a whole. And have you, since you started both of those, have you seen the positive results in the field that you expected, or has it exceeded your expectations?
I don't think it'll ever, it's exceeded my expectations up until this point. I don't think I'll ever sit back and say we're done, if that makes sense. I always think there needs to be improvement. Even when you think you've improved something, there always still needs to be improvement. This is a question of what you see that needs to be improved. But yeah, I have. I mean, as you're a part of this, you're one little small part of a larger group, and what that has done is we have set a precedence for our industry of kind of what to expect, or a bar to be measured at. So I've spoken to, even at the conference, as you know, we have over 100 lenders, and a lot of them are non-CCTG lenders, but they've come up to me, and we got people that want to get into CCTG. I got lenders beating down my door every day saying, hey, I want to get in the program. And, there's a criteria to get in here, and sometimes they do the same thing. So it wouldn't make sense to put them through here because we already have that field covered. However, they've told me, hey, we've worked with some of your students, and we've noticed a vast difference in the way they conduct themselves in terms of etiquette, broker etiquette, and B, just that they have a better wherewithal of the transaction, right? And so that's what has led them to be. It goes, hey, we want to get in your program because we want to see more of this. You know, we've worked with a few, and that really makes me proud, because it, you know, it again establishes a precedence. We've even had, you know, as you know, there's some lenders in our program that don't work with anybody except through our guys, right?
Yep.
Because they've you know, they've had bad experiences with non-CCTG people, and then they've cut off their broker program. And then since we've come along, they've opened it up just to our folks. So, you know, I don't think the minute you think you're done and you say, okay, I've done it. And I think that's complacency. And I think complacency is one of the biggest killers in business. So, you know, I've adopted that mindset where like, you asked me, has it exceeded my expectations? Yes. It's taken 12 years to get here, but yes. But am I satisfied? No, I don't ever want to be satisfied, because it just keeps pushing you to kind of refine and do more and, you know, and keep refining it. So yeah,
Awesome.
that would be my answer.
So
Anything
was
else?
there ever a time that you thought of leaving the industry? And if so, what made you actually stay?
That's a great question. I don't think anybody, Joe, has ever asked me that. Did I ever think about leaving? The answer to that is no. I've never thought about leaving this industry. I mean, I've done some things outside the industry business-wise, right? But never, you know, I love this. I love what I do. And I always say I could never see myself doing anything else. So no, I don't think, unless somebody told me, you know, hey, Kris, you want to come race for Ferrari in F1, and you know, we're going to pay you a boatload of money, Lewis Hamilton money, and you come race on the team. Yeah, absolutely. I'd walk away, because that's my dream, right? That's, if I could transplant anywhere, I'd be an F1 race car driver, travel the world and do, you know, travel at high speeds for a living and get paid millions of dollars for it. But outside of that, no, I wouldn't leave this industry.
That's awesome. I got one more question for you. What would you say would be the best piece of advice for, in general, for new people in the industry?
New people in the industry. Best piece of advice. Well, there's a lot. What would be the best piece of advice for new people in the industry? You mean new graduates, I guess? Is that what you're referring to? You know, I mean, you've probably heard me say this in class, you know, but one of the things is to, I mean, I'll probably say a lot, but you know, identify a niche, right? I mean, if you're getting into the industry, identify a niche, something that, because you can't do it all. I mean, I know you have a model, our model now, that you can do everything, but you got to identify a niche, which I think is smart with what you guys are doing, and that Eric is, you know, has equipment finance experience. And so, you know, we talked about in class, right, Justin, when we talked about growing the business, if you bring on somebody, tap into that network, tap into that person's networking experience and have them focus, which he's the equipment finance guy and yourself is the real estate guy. So that's, you know, you've kind of followed that practice. But, you know, focus on niches. You can't do it all. And number two, I would say, you know, advice is don't be afraid of, this has to do to a larger problem that we see with graduates. You know, a lot of graduates, some of them don't have sales experience. Some of them don't have talking on the phone experience. And as you know, this business is very personable. You got to talk to people on the phone, right?
Yep.
And some people get shy about, you know, following up with people, talking to people. They even get shy about cold calling. And it's almost, you know, the best. I gave advice one time to a graduate just recently, actually like last week. We had a class last week. And they're like, gee, you know, I don't, you know, what's your best advice for someone that's not experienced about on the phone? And I said, you know what? I go, just start calling people up. And I said, you know, wait till somebody literally tells you to go F yourself. I said, because it's never going to get worse than that. Right. I go, you got to get that out of your system, because you're going to get, your people are going to tell you things and they're going to yell at you and holler at you, stop calling. I go, once you get over that hump, everything else is easy. You know, like it just rubs off your shoulder. I said, you can't take things personal. And it plays into, you got to see opportunities in this business. The more opportunities you see, the more you'll close. And so you can't be afraid to talking to people or feel bad about what you're selling. You know, sometimes graduates, particularly with like MCAs, merchant cash advances, or even let's just say an expensive equipment finance transaction, it's not your fault that they're in the position that they're in. And oftentimes the best, the only solution you can give them is a higher rate product compared to bank financing. But you have to educate them on, if it makes financial sense, meaning they can afford the payment, there's an ROI on the equipment used, what's that a piece of equipment going to get you? And if that ROI is much greater than what you're, paying for the equipment and rate, I mean, the deal makes sense. So sometimes graduates feel bad about offering alternative financing because the rate's higher, but you can't feel bad about it. I mean, you're doing a good thing, and you got to put a smile on. You got to have conviction in what you're doing, and you got to believe in what you're doing. You won't have the success when you call a borrower up and assuming this is their best option and only option, and say, geez, I'm going to sell you this merchant cash advance, and I don't feel, I'm just, I got to apologize. The rate's high, and think about that. You're never gonna take that. You got to have enthusiasm and focus on the really positive things of why it's a good thing that they're going to get this, and so. I guess that's a lot of different answers to your question of what are some advice, what's some advice that I would give to somebody entering into this industry right now,
And I'm very thankful again for your guys' training class. And one thing, just as a side note, one thing that I keep with me all the time, and I didn't realize it when I was going through the training class, but I have had it. It hadn't happened a lot, but it has happened a few times where I've had potential clients, after they look over our fee agreement, say, oh, well, can you change this, this, and that? And I'm like, no, we don't make any changes because I paid a lot of money for this contract. It's been vetted by multiple attorneys, and it's good in all 50 states. So no changes. But I remember you telling in training, don't go down that rabbit hole. And we have never done that. And thankfully, like I said, it hadn't happened but just a handful of times. But that always stuck in the back of my mind, those couple of people that did ask. And then I just explained it like that. I'm like, no, I said, this is compliant in all 50 states. We paid a lot of money for a lot of attorneys to make it that way. So nothing can be changed.
Yeah. No, it's glad you remember that, because you never forget what happens when you do change certain aspects of that. You let people change it, and or an attorney, and then it comes around to bite you in the ass when it comes to closing. And believe me, when there's a lot of money involved, it's you never forget that when you lose out on some of that, right? Because you allowed that change. So I'm glad you remember that. I appreciate that. So tell me, guys, before we conclude here, what's the best? What's in store for 2022? What are some of your goals, aspirations? Eric, I'll start with you. What do you want to see happen in this next year?
Well, to be honest, after going to Vegas, my goal is to one day be on that stage. So that's what I'm after, to be honest with you.
And what did you think of NACLB? Like just coming there?
I loved it. It actually changed the way I looked at everything Justin was doing. And I told him that. I told him that I'm playing. I said, well, I'm sold. I'm sold. When you can have that kind of contact with that many lenders and a variety of different people, it's kind of hard not to make money. I hate to say it like that, and I'm not saying it's about the money, but when you can give people exactly what they need and you have a variety of ways of doing it, it just makes things a lot easier. Explaining things to people from a financial perspective, sometimes it gets lost in the minutia. But I'm pretty good about making the client feel good, because I am giving you the best I can give you at this time based on your circumstance. So when I went to Vegas, it made me realize that we need to grow, and grow smartly, but grow and eventually be one of the people who sponsor. Our way of giving back to CCTG for giving to us what we have available to us.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And what Eric's talking about, those of you that are listening or viewing this, we have a conference, the NACLB, that is the largest gathering and conference for commercial loan brokers in the industry. So they had recently attended that in October. What'd you think? Were you a Sugar Ray Leonard's fan?
Well, I grew up a Sugar Ray Leonard's fan. I was excited to know he was going to be there.
Yeah.
And his speaking, obviously, paralleled over to what he's good at, which is boxing. It was very easy to follow. Even the youngest person could have followed what he was trying to say. You guys did a great job. And I told him I've been to conferences all over, Scottsdale, Arizona, North Carolina, everywhere, because I've been in corporate America. But that conference, it was just as good as any conference I've ever been to.
Oh, I appreciate. Yeah, all of our staff donate their time to help run it, so yeah, I appreciate that feedback. It really means a lot. And one thing I'll say about Sugar Ray, I love the fact I had a chance to interview him, but I love the fact that how he paralleled his presentation with business, because oftentimes it's you can parallel boxing with business and what goes into it and preparation and losing some battles, winning some battles. So I love that parallel that he did. It really resonated.
I actually watched your interview with him. I actually watched it the other day. Actually, I watched the whole thing. And when you asked him if it's something that no one would know but him, what would it be? And he said about his childhood, when he first started boxing, what happened to him. And then you answered the same question. You talked about your I thought I had a rock in my shoe. And I told Justin, I said, now these are the type of people I can deal with. Because that's just being transparent. I mean, you can't get no more transparent than the two of you.
No, I know. And yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm not ashamed of it. It's I tell that story a lot. I open up with it in class because the story of the rock and the shoe, and it defined who I am, and I'm not ashamed of it whatsoever. And if I had to change it, if I had to go back some mystical way and say, would I change my childhood? I'd say no, absolutely not. I wouldn't. Those experiences that define people. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Justin. What about you? Last question. What do you have in store outside of what Eric said for 2022? What would you like to see happen?
Yeah, I'd like to see we obviously
that $200 million deal close.
Yeah, that as well. But and then we meet in Vegas again this year, because as Eric said, it was a phenomenal conference. And I went to the one the year before that was virtual, and it was good, but it's just not the same as being able to be in person.
Well, guess who we have coming this year?
Who's that?
Damon John of Shark Tank.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Damon John's gonna be the headliner.
Yeah, that's gonna awesome. That's gonna be.
But good. I would also say that this year for the conference is, like Eric said, when I took him to that last year, that really sealed the deal for him, because he really truly got to. It's one thing for us out here as we're bringing on independent contractors or people to work with us, to explain to them, oh yeah, we have this huge network of people that we can rely on, and that we can ask for help, and that we have a support system. It's one thing to say that, but then to his point, when they go to the conference and they see that in person, it makes a complete difference. So we already talked about it. Our goal for one of our goals this year is to be able to, for the next conference, bring all of our ICs with us, so they can all be there and get that experience for themselves.
And you know what that's going to do? That's going to motivate them too at the same time, just like it did for Eric. They're going to be like, wow, this is a real thing. This is just not Justin and Eric talking about, so they're going to realize it's a real thing in a real industry.
Exactly. And then my goal too, if we can, if Lord willing that, he sees it to come to fruition, like Eric said, not only be a sponsor, but my goal is I want to be, we want JRF to be that top sponsor spot that gets the, we went through and saw, and I was like, man, for that price, can you believe what all you get? Plus, you get to be the top sponsor. I'm like, yeah, we need to do that.
Before you do that, Joe, just remind me, we've got to raise our prices before we do that.
Yeah. You've been selling too long.
I wouldn't trace it. Hey, I'm true to my nature, right?
Supply and demand.
But no, hey, listen, guys. Listen, I really appreciate taking the time out of your your busy schedule. I know you got a business to run to do this. You didn't have to do this. And it really helped because it really, what I tell graduates is it helps people, not just new people looking into, like you did. You said you watched the podcast prior to coming here. But a lot of graduates listen to it. So they listen to it and just like, hey, what's somebody else doing? What are they doing? And you'll probably even get a few calls, maybe co-broker some deals. I mean, so, it is a win-win for everybody. And Eric, pleasure meeting you.
And just last minute to, bounce off of what you just said, Kris. That's the other thing that your class teaches is, and why we love the conference and the class, because outside of CCTG and the NACLB, it's a very cutthroat, or can be a very cutthroat environment. And your team not only teaches, but actually demonstrates and follows through with, hey, the old adage of a rising tide floats all boats is very true. Just like you said with the co-brokering. There's plenty of people out here for everybody to help. There's no reason to be, screwy about it or greedy. And if you co-broker and you help another person, at the end of the day, you're doing the main thing, which is helping the client. So that's another thing that I think a lot of people watching this, graduates or thinking about getting into the field, needs to understand too, that you guys really facilitate and teaches. It really is a team effort, and instead of an individual cutthroat effort. It's no, hey, we're here. You have the support system and you have the relationships to truly help grow and help the clients. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's about.
And I appreciate you saying that. As you're experiencing, I view CCTG as kind of like a family. We're one big, large family. And I always say we produce children every month. And once in a while we have some bad children, but mostly they're all good. And, sometimes we laugh, cry, fight a little bit. But at the end of the day, we all help each other and we're all in this for the same reason. And, it's like they say, one big happy family. So
that's right. Well, thank you for having us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for taking the time out. And so that wraps it up, everybody. Pleasure to interview Eric and Justin of JRF Financial. Feel free to tune into our YouTube channel, or I should say subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch future episodes. We're doing about 2 or 3 a month of past graduates and even lenders and everybody else in between, even some employees for that matter. So make sure you subscribe to that, and we will catch everybody on the next one. Thanks, guys. There are just too many commercial loan brokers that don't have a damn clue of what they're doing. All we're trying to do here is better the industry for everybody. At the end of the day, you can make great money in this industry, but in the end, it's all about helping people. People always say, Kris, how can I be a successful broker? It's 2 words, hard work and dedication. If you don't like talking to people, you probably shouldn't be in this business.